I don't even know where to begin with this one, guys. To say that Bungie has fumbled the ball with this expansion would be the understatement of the century. And honestly, I've pretty much lost faith in them as a company at this point.
Ugh, looks like I really dropped the ball on that one.
Back at Destiny 1, and this will really set the floor for my arguments about this release, expansions were huge. We'll use the Taken King as an example, and as far as MMO content releases go, it was incredible. It released with everything you see on screen, tons of exotics, 17 exotic weapons and 20 armor pieces to be specific, 26 story missions, including post-campaign, 4 new strikes, 3 new PvP modes, and 8 new PvP maps. There was a ton of other content added too, and it was generally seen as the bar for what we were going to get in the future with Destiny. This, unfortunately, didn't continue into Destiny 2. Don't get me wrong, Bungie had a ton of ups and downs, what with being bought by Activision and then going solo, only to be bought by Sony. But I think at this point, putting the blame on the publishers more than a little bit just doesn't fit the pattern. This isn't the first expansion they've done since leaving Activision. We've had Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, and Witch Queen before Lightfall, with Shadowkeep and Beyond Light really being lackluster, but Witch Queen really giving people a lot of hope in the company as a whole. Shadowkeep and Beyond Light suffered from the same problems as one another: short story, insane grind, lack of deeper content, and we thought they were just growing pains after the separation. Witch Queen was fulfilling. The campaign was satisfying, the characters were involved, there was a good amount of content, although some of the seasons really sucked. It was still way better than the previous 2 expansions. Now we're on to Lightfall, and Bungie did not continue the trend and make something better than Witch Queen, but to me something far worse than what they've made before. This expansion was supposed to be huge. Personally, I fell victim to the hype and the grandeur that was promised from Bungie. Lots of quality of life things that they showed off, and the fact that this was going to be the big confrontation in the story gave me a lot of hope. New zones, new look, I was pumped. Of course, it's hard to give them credit for adding things like loadouts that should have been in the game forever, and there is no excuse for how long it took. But man, I was really hyped to not have to use a million third-party apps to play this game. Quick side tangent, no, I'm not giving them points for adding quality of life stuff like this. Every other game in this genre has had loadouts forever, and we shouldn't be applauding them for doing something that is always the bare minimum for other companies. You don't give people credit for doing what they should have done years ago. It should be a given. Stop rewarding bad behavior. Anyway, the new mod system too sounded promising. Everything being simplified, all mods being unlocked for people, and a lot easier to understand and do builds. Sign me up. More hype on my brain for this release. Unfortunately, as I said in the beginning, Lightfall crashed and burned, I think, harder than any previous expansion ever has for Bungie. To say that players and myself are livid is an understatement, as Lightfall is the lowest scored expansion that Destiny 2 has ever had. It fell short in almost every category people had hope for, and it genuinely feels like the way it is now is not what it was supposed to be. As of writing this, it has a solid, crisp 33% positive on Steam, with most reviews being negative, and honestly, just scrolling through what a lot of people have to say, I think it's entirely justified. Before I jump into Lightfall, it's important for people who don't play the game to understand how the payment model works in Destiny 2. Expansions are usually $40 to $50, with deluxe editions costing anywhere between $80 and $100. Those editions generally including all the seasons that happen during the course of an expansion's lifespan. Usually there will be about 3 seasons per expansion, with each one costing $10 to get. Seasons will include a quest line, a season pass with cosmetics and unlocks, and a seasonal activity with weapons and stuff to unlock for said $10. On paper, this makes sense, but only if the primary expansion has content. Otherwise, it's like you're being sold stuff you already paid for at a drip-fed rate to make up the shortcomings of the expansion, which is where we were at with everything except for Witch Queen, now including Lightfall in that pile. Lightfall's story is probably the biggest disappointment with it as a whole. It was so bad and so jarringly confusing and out of nowhere that even Bife, the Destiny lore daddy extreme, disliked it, which really says something because he's usually only ever positive about the game.
I am the lore guy in this community, with, of course, exceptions like Myelin and Evase, who also do fantastic stuff, but point being, I am the quote-unquote lore daddy, and I can't tell you what the Veil is, because I don't know. They don't explain it in the story.
None of the characters from previous expansions that built up to this moment in Lightfall were involved except for Keitel and Osiris, and it really feels like something that was rushed by a bunch of interns to just have something to release, even if it wasn't fully finished. There's no Elsie or Anna, no Eris, nobody else, which is really confusing given that this is supposed to be a super serious and momentous occasion. The TLDR is that the Witness is finally here with his pyramids and doing something to the Traveler, which is bad, and you have to stop it by going to a Golden Age city that literally nobody knew about that has always existed on Neptune to find a new convenient super weapon that could pose a threat to him called the Veil before he does. What's the Veil, you might ask? Nobody knows. You never get told anything about it, leading people to further go, what the fuck is going on? Bungie had to actually release a press statement about more info coming soon to help stem the tide, because this story is just so dumb and hard to put together in your brain. So yeah, that's something. Anyway, it's 8 missions long and about 5 hours in total if you're playing on Legendary, maybe 3 or 4 if you're not. This wouldn't be such a kick in the nuts if it was a good story, but it's actually atrocious, and it really just leaves an awful taste in your mouth. 4 hours for $50, and one of the most pivotal moments in the game's history is just pathetic. The fact that the previous expansions had 12 hours or longer campaigns with dynamic things happening and major events going down, it just makes Lightfall look pathetic. The Taken King, like I said above in Destiny 1, had 28 missions versus Lightfall's 8, and it's just really sad to see this with how much money the company has made compared to back then. It's insane. It's like they're not using it. Lightfall's story in total genuinely just feels like a trailer teaser to get you hyped and interested in the next expansion already. Everything that was shown off in the trailers for Lightfall is pretty much just cut from the opening cinematic at the beginning of the first mission, and literally nothing gets resolved at all in the entire duration of the content. I cannot stress that enough. Nothing gets resolved. Having not included tons of previous characters, they decided to add 2 new main characters that are called Cloud Striders, Nimbus and Rohan, which to me were completely out of place with the rest of the universe. They look like something out of Warframe, and they just don't fit. I, for the life of me, cannot understand why they did Nimbus the way they did too. He's like a peppy, dumb himbo. And that's not even slightly an exaggeration. He's constantly acting like a dumb goofball, and it kind of just becomes patronizing and annoying very quickly. I don't have anything against characters like this in stories, like, you know, Emperor's New Groove, Kronk, amazing, but damn dude, earn it. Don't cut out so many others and then put this archetype of character in. It's just insulting. How come nobody saw that his armor plate would look like a giant bulge, like a G-string bulge? Or like a thong bulge?
That's a good question. It's mostly just like the way the light is hitting it in this place.
Yeah, I don't understand how it got past like QA, because it's straight up just like a, like if you showed that to someone, that's a dick.
Can go process their differences over some fermented tea or whatever.
I get that it's not actually his crotch, it's lower.
It just looks like a bulge. It looks like he's wearing a thong and it's just hanging over. I need to mention Osiris too, as I said he was in this campaign, just because he seriously tries to push strand energy as like a drug like meth on you the entire way through the story. His character arc in this story is seriously telling you to just do shitloads of strand energy like it's cocaine, screaming at you to do more when it doesn't affect you. Like it's a never-ending circle of do more drugs, do it more, do it harder. Eventually, he has you do so much cocaine that it starts killing you, and he decides you should slow down, then starts talking like he's a martial arts philosophy major.
Shut up, Nimbus. You're ruining it. You're making me dislike it, Nimbus.
They're just trying to make you like Strand so much, dude. The developers were like, we really want our player base to understand Strand is supposed to be cool.
That is so.
Strand.
Gretchen, stop trying to make
Strand.
happen. It's not going to happen.
Seriously, the line flow like water gets thrown around, and it is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in this game. He was like Walter White peddling this stuff, and then in the span of 5 minutes changes direction completely and tries to be a sensei. What the fuck?
Are all contained within. In fact, they are the same. The same as us, the same as our enemies.
The fuck is he talking? Is he high? Is he high on Strand?
He's high on Strand.
He's just doing too much Strand.
We've been swimming against the river's current.
He's literally just trying to talk about a collective consciousness between all beings right now.
It sounds like he's just trying to sell me NFTs. I gotta be honest with you.
What are we doing? We've literally just gone in a circle.
We're really onto something here, huh? What changed?
What? What do you mean we're onto something? We just killed 3 harpies.
One needs the right perspective.
I fucking hate this. I hate this so much. This is so dumb.
This new perspective offers.
What? Bro, you're not a fucking philosopher. There's nothing confound about what they wrote. We killed a glowing harpy, and he's like, see, we're really understanding the mysteries of the universe right now. As far as content outside of the story, a lot of it feels like the bare minimum we've been given over and over in the past. It's not awful, and it's not as bad as some of the previous repetitive things we've done, but it's definitely not something Bungie should write home about. Also, if you have to constantly, through a story, tell players that this is cool and wow, look how cool this is, then it isn't cool. We were laughing so hard because there were literally segments in the story where they were doing that. Just stop, Bungie. Neomuna, the city, though, is a pretty alright zone. My one complaint about it is that it feels very empty and devoid of life, which is dumb since it's supposed to be a massive Golden Age city. It's colorful, sure, but it's primarily flat and doesn't have anything going on, which is contrary to what the trailers would have you believe. I will give them credit where credit is due and say that the patrols and the rotating world events are pretty good, maybe the best in a while, but for the content that you're going to be doing hundreds, if not thousands of times in the course of this expansion, it's not good enough.
Wow, that was
Cool items.
so sweet. Did you see how sweet that was?
Yeah,
No.
that was pretty sweet.
How are you guys watching?
I did not know how that Strand stuff was going to work out this time.
It worked all right.
If your game has to tell you something's cool, then it's not cool, guys. Like, I'm Bungie, come on.
Yeah.
If you have to
For
tell
real,
the
for
player this
real.
is supposed to be cool, then it's not cool. That's like rule 1 of any video game. Is like if
let
you have to
let the player
reinforce
make their
that
own
it's
assumptions. Jeez.
guys, this is supposed to be cool right now, right? This is really cool. Okay, don't you question how cool it is. It's cool. The exotic quests and exotics themselves that were added with Lightfall are solid. The Strand pistol rocks, the stasis glaive is dope, and a few of the exotic armor pieces they added are fun. Nothing is completely mind-blowing in this regard, and they're just solid, but again, it's a far cry from the sheer staggering number of exotics they've released before in previous expansions. That's really the theme of this, if you haven't noticed. There's just so little for the money, and we're still expected to pay more for more story that we should have gotten in future seasons of this expansion. It's shit. The best part of the entire expansion, though, in my opinion, is the new Strand energy class. And with the right builds mixed with the new mod system, it's a ton of fun. It's very spammy, causes lots of pretty explosions, and has a lot of potential, with all the synergy being silly strong when you're doing it just right. Initially, they weren't going to unlock all the stuff for it until the world first ended a week or two after the campaign's launch, but the sheer blowback from the players of keeping everything locked and restricted made the community pissed, and they buckled. Bungie unlocked everything this class has to offer, and it's great. It's a shame we didn't get this back when the Witch Queen came out, because it was allegedly supposed to be released with that expansion. That makes a lot of sense too, that it should have been put in back then, as it just screams hive energy, especially with the threadlings. I can only imagine how many developmental problems Bungie is having internally across these expansions. Strand lets you grapple around, lift shit in the air, blow stuff up, and then keep grappling like it's nobody's business. And as a warlock, I found extreme fun in using Necrotic's grips, which are poison gauntlets, with the Osteostriga SMG to chain and explode groups of enemies all over the place. This was a great addition to me and the biggest redeeming thing in this expansion overall. I will give a second notable commendation to the revamped mod system. Initially, I hated it as we lost so many mods and it felt like a downgrade. But after I played more, I did realize they did a good job of simplifying things and making most of the mods actually useful and far more powerful than they were before. A lot of the older mods returned, but in beefed up versions, and I appreciate it now. I look forward to the future additions of mods and the re-adding of ones that were removed once they figure out how to make them work better. One shortcoming to this system is that there really are only a handful of builds that are going to work and be viable right now, with grenades and melee being the primary focus, and it's weird how strong they are considering that Bungie was trying their hardest to pivot back towards gunplay, but ability spam is still the way to go. Also, the new player experience has finally been revamped from the horrid fucking state it has been in since Shadowkeep, and I cannot stress enough how awful it was to join at any point if you haven't played before. It's now somewhat more understandable for players who are hopping in. They've added a Guardian rank system, a pretty huge quality of life upgrade that should have been in Back and Beyond Light because of how much of an issue it was, which is something that tells you what to do to get an understanding of Destiny 2. You unlock mods, get loadout slots, and a bunch of other stuff by simply following the progression, and personally see this only as a positive at the current moment. Any rank past 6, however, seems to reset with each season, and some of the requirements to get these ranks are just nuts. I'm genuinely hoping that they do not put all the mods locked behind those ranks, as it seems like an insane grind and absolutely shouldn't gate anything like that. I will be very mad if they do. So what about all the non-exotic gear, armor, so on and so forth? Well, it's pretty all right. Obviously, they've added strand weapons with a couple of interesting perks, but they're just more generic shooty bangs. Nothing extraordinary, but they get the job done and they give you something to grind for. As far as PvP, I'm pretty sure they've forgotten PvP exists.
Dude, Sunshot makes me flinch like nobody's business. Yeah.
Dude, Sunshot fucks right now, dude. I can't even see the guy that's shooting Sunshot. He's like actually completely invisible. I wish I could say that I had any idea what was happening, but I don't. I'm bottom fragging because for half the game, my fusion rifle or my Vex had the recoil of a fusion rifle firing full auto, and then everyone was invisible, and then all my guns broke. And now I can't come into anyone. Maps in this game should be pumped out like crazy, and it seems like every expansion just gives us PvPers a middle finger. It's the same experience constantly with little support and pretty much no balancing, and it honestly gets pretty bland. I love the PvP in this game, but still, there's no arguing that the PvPers are a minority that don't get any attention. I could go on and on and on and on and on about specific little things that were added and what they shoved into the game and what they removed, but I just really want to get my serious gripes out of the way or this video will last forever. It just thinks my Vex Mythoclast is a fusion rifle. And then it like works afterwards, but like for the moment, it's just like brow, brow, brow. That's not how this works, game. I'm really tired of having to lie to myself and defend Bungie just to see their shitty excuses. This expansion has been a total disappointment, and that's on top of all the other blows I've been struck with as a fan of the game that I've put an insane amount of time in. I've put around 10,000 hours into Destiny 2 with just 4.7 thousand on Steam since the BattleNet merger, so I have a pretty fair idea about the state the game's in. I've put around 10,000 hours into this game with 4.8K on Steam just since the merger of BattleNet, so I have a pretty fair idea about the state the game's in. I'm tired of recycled content. I'm tired of false promises and things never delivered. I'm tired of having things taken away and sunset like they have been, only to be recycled later and thrown in as seasonal content. The amount of stuff they make you redo over and over and over every season is not okay, and this is just not acceptable for any MMO. Boxes work. Doesn't look, he doesn't understand.
Dude, you should see what I'm doing. I'm walking up the stairs a little bit, he jumps up. I walk down the stairs a little bit, he jumps down. Dude's stuck in a loop.
This dude really having a rough time with.
Wait,
with
do
this
we both? I think we both have them stuck in different loops.
Yes! All the power of the darkness in the universe! And you're defeated by a simple box! It's absolutely shit that we have to put up with this as players. It's shit that every season and every expansion feels almost identical, and regardless of what they add in Destiny 2, it always feels like the same game. Every other MMO that releases content adds so much when there's an expansion. Look at World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV as an example, and Bungie has the resources and has the talent to do comparative work, but they choose not to, and I don't understand why. I look at something like WoW or 14, and I see tons of new dungeons, raids, and stories that go on for over 20 hours, with a lot of new zones and interesting areas. There's always new reputations to grind, actual character development, tons of cutscenes, you name it, and it's a lot for what you pay for. $40 goes a long way in those games. And yet, for the same price, we keep doing the same content over and over in Destiny 2. It feels like every expansion is us paying for way less than what we should get, forced to buy season after season to even have a full experience. It genuinely feels like we're buying a car, only getting the engine block, and then being told the other parts are coming and we have to pay for delivery of said parts to build the car. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's insane that we're doing the same strikes constantly for years. It's insane that we're given so little and expected to pay more. It's insane that this multi-billion-dollar worth company can't compete with companies far smaller than it is in the MMO market. And it's insane that we know they can, but they just don't try. I don't want Bungie to fail. I don't want Destiny 2 to fail. I just want it to be better. This is me as a player wanting more from a company I used to love that used to do such incredible things. This is me knowing that everyone else knows that Bungie can do way better than what they are currently, and that Bungie, you need to fucking get yourself in gear. I, as of this moment, don't find myself hyped for any more Destiny 2 stuff. That's gone. This expansion killed any chance of me trusting this company in the future until they've proven to me time and time again they could do better, as I genuinely just feel outright lied to with everything that was promised. This expansion had the potential to be groundbreaking to the player base. It had the potential to be so much greater than what it is right now, but they decided to break it up into 2 parts and fuck everyone over with Lightfall. I encourage anyone and everyone that feels the way I do to actually speak up, review it, post on the forums, let your voice be heard. They need to know this isn't okay. This isn't a trend that they should keep sticking with. Never harass the developers, I'll say this now, as the people in charge making the decisions who fuck up are not the devs. I'm sure the devs are doing their best and care as much, if not more, than we do about the game, but they can't do anything about the situation when their bosses don't listen. Normally now, I'd break the game down into separate scores, but in this instance, I'm not going to. As it's an expansion, I'm just going to give my overall experience a flat score number. Everything considered, all the flaws and letdowns thought about, and the wasted potential, the want for more, I'm going to give Lightfall a super low but extremely generous 4 out of 10. I'm just so disappointed with almost everything, guys. I've had so many friends I wanted to get back in the game that spent money on it feel robbed. I've had so many people that just started for the first time saying, is this it in regard to the story? And just dealing with the amount of people still feeling lost is just too much. At this point, I think we just need to look to Sony. They paid a ton for Destiny 2 and Bungie right before the release of the expansion, so you know they're pissed as hell about their image being hurt. Maybe Bungie needs strict oversight and guidance to do well, as keep in mind their best work on this game came from when they were owned by Activision Blizzard, and Halo came from when they were owned by Microsoft. It's something to think about. Yeah, anyway, that's going to be it for this review of Lightfall, and I genuinely want to ask for your feedback and opinions on this expansion down in the comments below. I want to know what you think about this never-ending cycle of doing the same content non-stop and being given so little, and what do you think would fix it? Like the video, subscribe if you're not, and share it around. It's a spicy video, I know, but just a lot I had to get off my chest, you know? Until the next video, this is Delrith, and I'll be seeing you. Bye.